Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the second day of our conference, the Africa-Europe Partnership Connecting Young Local Leaders. My name is Tamsin Rose and I'm a Senior Fellow at the Africa-Europe Foundation, and I have the great pleasure to be your moderator this afternoon. A few housekeeping rules before we start. Please keep your microphones mute and your cameras on so we can see you. There will be opportunities for you to interact with us using the chat that you can see at the bottom of your screen. Today's event is translated and interpreted in French and Spanish, and you'll be able to change the language so you can listen to the translation. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little sign for a globe, and there it will say interpretation, and you can choose English, French, or Spanish. So you have the opportunity to listen in different languages. We have a hashtag for today's event, and you can see it on the screen, Local for Youth, 4 being the number, so Local for Youth. And we'd be very excited to see your tweets and your messages. So we started yesterday by asking you a question on Slido. And we asked you in one word to describe what you thought of the future of Africa and Europe relations. And here you can see that clearly collaboration is at the heart of what you want to see. Reciprocity, cooperation, and innovative. But people were very honest. They said it's problematic, it's challenging, it's growing. It's an opportunity to be confident, to be led by youth, but to be mutually beneficial and equal. So are these aspects of the relationship between the two continents that we recognize as being important for us to address. What we're going to do today is we're going to explore how this network of young elected local officials could make a difference. Because it's a young network, it has energy, dynamism, enthusiasm, and lots of ideas. And we're going to explore how the two continents can come together to leverage this potential of young people and young elected officials to have an impact, particularly leading up to the Africa Union and European Union Summit, which is likely to be in February 2022. We have about 6 to 8 months to work together collaboratively over the next few months to decide what are the priorities, what could we do together? How could young local officials bring the voice of their communities and their populations into a higher level of politics? And how can we achieve real change on the ground for citizens who elected you? So that's going to be our theme for today. We'd like to ask you another question on Slido. So get your phones ready. And we're going to invite you to now choose one topic on which Africa and Europe has the most common grounds, the most potential to make an impact. So if you go to slido.com and you put in local for, and that's the number for youth, you should be given a screen where you can see different ideas, different topics that you can use.
It will appear in one moment. We're having a technical issue and it's, yes. So
there we go.
So they can go on slido.com and use the hashtag up to youth for today.
Right, that's today's, thank you, Edouin. That's today's hashtags. If you go to slido.com or you'll point your phone at the screen and you'll see that QR code, it will bring you in to a topic where we're asking you to select a topic where you think there is the most potential and the most common grounds between Africa and Europe. And here we have the options in front of us. And the decisions you make now will help guide the work of the UCLGA and CEMR over the next few months. So, education, political and democratic inclusion. Do you think the most potential and the most in common is around migration or the digital gap? Is it around gender equality? It's about job creation and entrepreneurship. So we have lots of topics for you to choose from. We'd like you to think, where is there the most potential for this network of local officials, young local officials, to have an impact, the most potential to make a change. We're going to leave that open for a little bit to allow you to connect on your phone and make a decision. So those are your options. And I can see we've got gender equality and migration that are equally leading at the moment as areas where people see there's a real opportunity for change and the main challenge that should be discussed. We've also got some votes for political and democratic inclusion. Climate change is coming up the agenda. Education and job creation entrepreneurship also getting some votes. So we'll leave that open and you can keep thinking about it and reflecting on that. But we wanted to get a sense from you about what should be the topics that we could work on collaboratively in the coming months. And perhaps while you're thinking about this, we asked what else as another topic. Somebody suggested something else, looking at representation. And if you were the person who did representation, please use the chat and let us know a little bit more what you mean by representation. Is it representation of young people, of particular groups? In what places do you want to see representation? So please use the chat as a way to communicate with us through this afternoon. And we'll leave that Slido open so it allows you to reflect on what you think might be the key challenges. And if you can keep that open, maybe on your phone or another device, I'll now move on to pass the floor to the UCLGA, to Jacqueline Moustache-Belle, the Director for Youth and for Gender. And of course, you may find it interesting, Jacqueline, that one of the top messages that was coming through just now was around gender equality. People wanted to see that as an issue, and that's within your portfolio. So Jacqueline, I give you the floor to give a few words of welcome. You're on mute, Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, you're still on mute.
Okay, well, here I am. Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, I said it's a pleasure. Yes, it's a great pleasure to be with you for the second day as well. And needless to say, we do support. That's why we had gender. And after a first introductory that gave us an overview of the expectations of young leaders in government, that was yesterday. Yeah. We will reflect together now on the best way to keep this dialogue alive. And I trust that we all have the commitment to keep it going because, you know, we've all had the experience when we've had the platform to talk and then we felt that not much was happening. But I'm confident that between Africa and Europe with this platform whereby as UCLG we are involved and on your side as well, this will be something that will be ongoing for Africa and for Europe. And so that we could have a key role in the positioning of young elected representatives of both the men and women in the territorial governance arena. These two stakeholders of local development are often underestimated when they are in the political sphere, and little do we realize that probably this is where our potential lies, and we need to exploit it further. Today we have the opportunity to reflect together on how to reverse the trend or rebalance the role of the actors. During the talk of yesterday, various contributions highlighted both the indispensability of young women in areas of development, of culture, and this is extremely, extremely important. Many a time we tend to forget a little bit about what the culture is, how the importance that we have to pay. And we also need economy, and in the context of Africa, we needed to provide the empowerment to the economic development, especially of women, because if we look around, the actuality, the reality of Africa is that we have so many women who are practicing the informal sector. They're practicing in the informal sector. And this means that the potential is there for us to bring them further, to empower them, for them to become the business that they're supposed to be. And this is a great area where we need to invest. And I'm sure there's the group in Europe as well, probably, who either you have the know-how or you will be able to partner with us for us to bring this area. It's a key area for women in Africa, the empowerment of the economy, especially now after COVID. And we also have the youth is, where they're fresh, they're very innovative, and the way forward for our future is through the youth, and it's through innovation. We have what we have to maintain what we have to grow on it, but we wouldn't grow if we cannot innovate. So we'll focus a lot on the young minds, on the young brains, for them to bring this along, and through research, of course, and especially now with a wide scope of education, the students could participate in research, and we can cooperate between Africa and Europe to bring this forward. However, if we want to focus on the youth, we cannot do this if we are not ready to involve them in the decision making. Because as much as the youth would want to create, they would want to be innovative, they would want to participate. If we do not hear them, if we do not give them a platform, they would feel discouraged. And if you feel discouraged, it's very difficult to bring them on. So we have to, for the leaders of today, we need to remember all the time that whichever organization that we form part of, there is the absolute necessity of having the youth with us. It doesn't mean that they have to be the majority, not at all, but at least one or two of them, if we have them in, we would be ready to evaluate the way they think, and they would be the speakers, the portfolio, of the group that they represent. And what we also have to bear in mind as we speak is that the youth are the transforming agent. And if we want to progress, if we want to move from where we are for further improvement, remember, youth is the transforming agent. And now is the time for us to create the conditions for them, for us to create the collaboration that will meet their expectations, because it is an ambitious, the youth of today, they are an ambitious generations, and they have many of them, large majority of them, have the tools that are required to help them to reach the goal that they have in mind. Now, the bridge that we are building together between the two continents and with the young Europeans and African local elected officials could now open new voices for the North-South cooperation. And we have to make sure that we don't let go of this, because we always talk about North-South cooperation and etc. But do we really, have we ever included the youth strongly? So I think we need to grab this platform and establish our North-South. If ever there should be North-South, should our youth of tomorrow believe in a North-South, or should our youth of tomorrow be the youth of tomorrow, regardless which part of the continent you come from, which part of the world you come from? So the common challenges are numerous, and our two organizations are already committed to issues of common interest, in particular the issue of women. I hope I'm not being biased, but I do represent Fiorella as well. So we would like to see women as political leaders, and women do very well as political leaders. If I may just provoke a little, if we are to check the results of how the world has survived the pandemic, and let's just find out who did very well, and let's check who the head of step were. And I would like to speak for yourself on that one. And we need women and climate change as well. And what we need to understand is, whenever we have disasters that are caused by climate change, it can be drastic all of a sudden disasters, or it can be disasters that happens, because it's there's no rain, it's long term. But who suffers the most? Who are always present? It's the women. The women are there. The women are on site. It's the woman who has to pick up. When there's a flood, who runs around trying to find shelter for the evening? And of course, we need the men to help us, but the women know exactly where it hurts when there's climate change. So we have to include the European and the African women together, and we will progress. And of course, the youth African women and the youth European women and men. So basically where we are now, we should come to the point of, Madam Chair, it's like, what do we discuss first? Because we have so many priorities, but then within ourselves, we will have to decide what is the number one and then the number two, and where should we meet, where should we discuss, virtual, if this works, but we need to get things done. And I would like the youth who have spent time yesterday and today to watch, to participate. Let's say in about 3 months' time, 6 months' time, they will say, oh, wow, yes, it happened, following that particular conference that we had. Because I would like to think that I think like the youth, and I believe you have the potential, you have the energy, and you are ready and willing to work. And all we need to do now is to create the mechanism to get the European youth together with the African youth. And I believe together, the sky will be the limit. And we should create the opportunity for you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me the couple of minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. And you highlighted the importance of recognizing the quality of leadership and how much women can bring to that leadership in terms of their inclusiveness and their engagement with families and communities on the ground. And that's very important, particularly when we look at the challenges for the future. I've noticed that a few people have already put your hands up to speak. I will come to you in a minute. I have one speaker who I need to bring in first, and then I will come to you to invite you to speak. I'm going to invite Fiorella Perotto, who is the Senior Expert and Policy Officer for Africa at the European Commission's Directorate General for Education, Youth, Culture and Sport. So we've just been talking here about the importance of recognizing that young people have views, they have messages, that there needs to be good quality education investment in skills. That came up very strongly yesterday. Some of our elected officials spoke about going out and reaching out to young people. And it's come up today when we asked people in the chat and on the Slido, what should be the themes? Tackling the informal economy, entrepreneurship, but good quality education as the key to the employment and economic opportunity. So Fiorella, welcome, thank you. What can you tell us about what you're doing in your unit to strengthen the cooperation and particularly making this link of education being an opportunity and a gateway to an economic future? Fiorella.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you, to all of you.
Yes,
I'm very pleased to be. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I would like to thank CEMR for their invitation, and I really welcome this opportunity to outline here the new initiatives that have been recently launched by the European Commission in the fields of education and training and of youth, which have a particular relevance for Africa. All these initiatives are set within the overall framework of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and also of the European Green Deal, which is the strategic agenda that aims at making the EU climate neutral by 2050. And this transformation has implications not only for Europe, but also for its partners, and has implications for education and training systems in Europe and beyond Europe, including in Africa. We have a comprehensive strategy with Africa in the European Union that was adopted in 2020 that precisely aims to address the challenges that are common to both Europe and Africa. Many people spoke about collaboration and partnership, and this is exactly the spirit of this strategy. And the strategy aims to address, for example, the green transition, which has already been mentioned, climate change, but also the digital transformation, which has been dramatically accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in education. And the implementation of this strategy with Africa is supported both by thematic strategies of the European Union, and funding programs. And I will say a few words on both of them. The main funding program is, of course, Erasmus+, which is the EU flagship program for education, training, youth, and sport. Since 2015, Erasmus Plus has supported 35,000 exchanges of students and researchers between Africa and the European Union. And it has supported around 150 institutional cooperation projects focusing on Africa, which have been working to support knowledge creation, innovation in universities, and to enable universities to play a stronger role in driving economic development and in providing the skills that are relevant for the labor market, for the economy, and for innovation. The new Erasmus Plus program for the period from 2021 to 2027, which has started this year, has an overall budget of over 28 billion euros. This is almost the double compared to the budget for the previous programming period from 2014 to 2020. This means that we should be able to reach a new ambitious target of 105,000 individual mobilities with Africa by 2027. So by the end of this new programming period, we hope to have supported through Erasmus Plus over 100,000 exchanges, individual mobilities involving Africa and Europe, exchanges between Africa and Europe. The new Erasmus Plus has a strengthened global dimension in terms of international learning mobility, because, for example, there are novelties. I mentioned higher education. Up to now, exchanges, student exchanges under Erasmus Plus have happened between university students, between universities. Now, exchanges are also open between Europe and Africa in vocational education and training. This was a very strong demand from our African partners, and this has become a reality. So, apart from this, I would just recall what the main actions of the Erasmus Plus program are, which are open to our African partners, both individual students, teachers, and institutions, universities, or vocational education and training colleges. So they are, first of all, the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters, which is a full degree mobility program. It is already starting this year. It is open to all disciplines, and it is delivered by consortia of higher education institutions from different countries, from all over the world. And as from next year, because there was a slight delay, so we were not ready for this year, but next year we will. Erasmus Plus will also be open for African participants as regards short-term mobility, the so-called credit mobility, for students, for trainees, but also for staff, administrative staff of universities, for teachers and trainers, for exchanges between European Union and what we call partner countries, so non-European countries, including Africa. Erasmus Plus is also open to Africa as regards capacity building projects in higher education. These projects foster, for example, access to international cooperation in higher education. These are small projects to help newcomers get their first experience in international cooperation. They also support partnerships for innovation that involve, for example, cooperation between universities and businesses. And they also support what we call structural reform projects, focusing on policy reforms, and involving the ministries, the authorities of the countries themselves. Very similar to capacity building in higher education, we are having, as I already mentioned, We have the capacity building in vocational education that will support partnerships between vocational education institutions from Europe and from other countries for developing, for example, study programs that are relevant to the needs of the labor market, to improve quality, to establish quality assurance systems, to improve governance, and to encourage to promote internationalization. Another novelty this year in Erasmus Plus is the opening of the Erasmus Plus virtual exchanges as from this year. This action has already been tested in previous years in certain African countries in the southern Mediterranean, so northern Africa. From this year, it will be open to the whole African continent. Virtual exchanges under Erasmus Plus are online exchanges, which allow, for example, facilitated discussions, so discussions with facilitators between young people or between students in higher education from different countries. They also allow online training activities for university professors, for university staff, and also for youth workers. So these are the main actions that are open to Africa under Erasmus+. I would like to mention just two of the main strategic, the thematic initiatives, or the policy initiatives that will also be supported by Erasmus+, and that also have a strong international global dimension. The first one is the European education area. Of course, primarily, this is like a holistic framework to foster cooperation between European member states to improve the quality and then the inclusiveness of national education and training systems. However, a strong focus is also put on international cooperation, global cooperation, not only as an instrument to support the external policies of the European Union, but as an instrument of soft diplomacy, as an instrument that can support, help people to connect to each other worldwide, that allows to reach out to a large number of stakeholders, including civil society, that can facilitate dialogue. And this cooperation can, in particular, support reforms of education and training systems to boost youth unemployment, entrepreneurship, all the big challenges that have already been mentioned by the previous speakers. And in Africa, in particular, international partnerships, for example, supported by Erasmus+, have facilitated the development of innovative curricula and of joint degrees. They have fostered joint projects, they have boosted innovation and job creation, and capacity building actions have been instrumental for the internationalization of higher education in Africa, and they have supported socioeconomic reform and democratic consolidation. The second thematic initiative I would like to mention very briefly is the European Digital Education Action Plan 2021-2027. This action plan also has a strong international dimension, which calls for cooperation to make education and training systems fit for the digital age, not only in Europe, but also in partner countries and with partner countries, to ensure digital literacy and digital skills for all. We all know that the COVID crisis has put distance learning at the center of education practices. It has also exposed a big digital divide in many countries. So now, as we move beyond the emergency phase of the pandemic, we need a more strategic, a longer-term approach to digital education. And this action plan focuses on two long-term priorities. One is to develop education ecosystems, so to develop the performance of digital education systems, meaning, for example, developing infrastructure, developing all what revolves around education itself, around the pedagogy. And the second one is to enhance digital competencies and skills and digital literacy of individuals, of people, of students, but also of citizens, of any citizen. And Erasmus Plus will support the participation of non-European countries, including from Africa, in the international dimension of this initiative.
Thank you.
One more. Thank you.
I was going to say,
Okay,
Fiorella, you've given a lot of information that's quite hard for our audience to take in. Can we get some links from you that we can share
Sure.
with the audience?
Yes.
So that they can follow online, because key action 1, key action 2 it's jargon that's hard to understand unless you see the whole picture. So we will send to the audience a specific information, because I think people will be interested in the opportunities that exist there. And as you say, you're looking to triple the number of individual placements with this program. So it looks like there are new opportunities. Before I move on, we have had one specific question from the audience for you, asking about the key action 3, which is the support for policy reform that's mainly focused on Europe. But is that also opening up to Africa in the same way that the short mobility period placements are opening up?
Not at this stage, because there are other actions that allow to support very similar actions to the one that are supported through key action 3. I mentioned the capacity building action. So which is also about systemic reform, which is very similar to the objectives of key action 3. So at the moment, this is not foreseen.
Okay, thank you for that. And as I said, if we get links from you, we will send it as part of the report for the audience, so that they're able to look in more detail and share that, because it's very clear yesterday and even in the chat today, you can see the importance of education and skills, and linking that to the economy, to entrepreneurship, also the high number of people involved in the informal sector, particularly women. They need access to entrepreneur skills and credit. So education is clearly important to our audience. So thank you, Fiorella, for coming to share that with us. We have a few people from the audience who've asked for the floor, and we also have a tight program to go on with. And yesterday I didn't have time to ask Kadim to share his views. And Kadim, I noticed you've put a lot of things in the chat about the informal sector, about the role of women. You've talked about particularly the challenges for women. If they don't have access to the land, they then don't have access to credit. So thank you for putting all these things. Would you like to just take the floor very briefly, 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll keep going, because I did promise you from yesterday.
Oui, bonjour à vous tous. Donc, je suis vraiment très heureux de rejoindre cette plateforme. En fait, j'ai pas mal donné d'informations. Juste pour revenir sur une chose, nous venons de sortir d'une pandémie, et cette pandémie, en fait, a donné quelques informations sur la manière de concevoir nos politiques de développement. Vous savez que au niveau de la pandémie, beaucoup de pays attendaient à ce que l'Afrique prenne des restrictions sur le fait de limiter les déplacements, de freiner l'économie. Alors que l'Afrique s'est rendu compte que ces économies étaient différentes des économies occidentales. Donc, dans ce cadre de figure-là, prendre un exemple sur le secteur informel. Au Sénégal, vous savez que le secteur informel, c'est 95,6% des emplois. Donc, si vous freinez ces activités-là, alors que ces travailleurs du secteur n'ont pas de protection sociale, n'ont pas de retraite, et évidemment, vous allez créer des problèmes. Alors que la plupart des travailleurs qui font du télétravail chez eux, alors ces travailleurs-là ont des salaires à la fin du mois, ont de la protection sociale, ont de la santé. Donc, nous nous sommes rendus compte que nous devons s'attaquer au secteur informel. Donc, pour moi, c'est le vrai enjeu du Sénégal et de l'Afrique. Car si on règle ce problème-là, on va régler le problème du chômage. Si on mettait en place une stratégie de développement du secteur informel et que l'Europe puisse aider l'Afrique dans ce partenariat-là, ce serait important. Parce que beaucoup de problèmes seront réglés sur la création d'emplois durables. Parce que dans le secteur informel, les emplois sont très précaires. Les entreprises du secteur n'ont pas accès au financement parce qu'elles sont informelles. Donc, ce sont les vraies causes structurelles qu'il faut attaquer de mon point de vue. Donc, l'autre chose, c'est que la diaspora africaine, vous savez qu'on n'a pas tendance à entendre la diaspora africaine sur la formulation de nos politiques de développement en Afrique. Et quelle information qu'on a au niveau de la diaspora? Quelles sont les quelle est la masse critique, quels sont les ingénieurs, où ils sont, qu'est-ce qu'ils font en Europe, en Amérique, aux États-Unis. Donc voilà, je pense que quelques idées à arriver à d'abord les identifier, à les rencontrer pour qu'elles puissent revenir en Afrique et bâtir une politique de développement inclusif. Donc c'est à ces deux niveaux-là que j'aimerais intervenir et suivre le débat qui en cours, Inch'Allah. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Kadim, both for your patience from yesterday and the very rich content that you've added in the chat, and that's very useful to us. And I'm sure this issue of the size of the informal economy is an issue that is echoed in other countries, and it's a real challenge. In a time of pandemic, if there's no social protection, what do you do with the informal economy? And I can see that Rose has also put something in the chat about the informal economy in Cameroon, and it's the lack of access to information and to skills that's really an issue. So we're going to pick up on some of these issues, and I'm going to continue with our agenda, and then I will come back to some people who wanted the floor. But first, let me introduce you to two people. Aoudou Munchili, who's a young expert at the European Union Youth Cooperation Hub. He's a founder and executive president of Rural Youth in Cameroon. And we also have Mayelen Mendizabal, which is from the Diversity for Equality organization in Spain. Let me start with Aoudou. You're going to tell us a little bit more about the Youth Cooperation Hub, and I think you're going to show us a little video. Aoudou, please unmute yourself. Aoudou, go ahead. Please unmute. There you are. Good.
Aoudou?
Yes, Redouane.
Go ahead.
Tell us about the Youth Cooperation Hub. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me in this panel and for giving me the opportunity to voice how what the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub has been doing, how innovative we have been since 2018, and how we have been innovating to bridge the challenges between Africa and Europe. And I would say it's always a pleasure for us at the Hub to engage with other young people working on the same challenges on the continent. So one of the main aspects of the Hub, of the work of the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub, has been to connect young people from Africa and Europe to solve challenges that young people face on both continents. To understand how innovative the Hub has been, let's look at youth engagement in the Africa-Europe partnership before 2017. And you can understand with me that at that time, there was a youth track with a youth summit. And in the best scenario, the reports and recommendations of the youth summit were summarized in a declaration that was rarely addressed between the summits. In 2017, the AU-EU summit was followed by a youth blogging initiative that was created to engage youth directly in the dialogue with the institutions and the decision makers. This was then followed in 2018 by the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub with continued support from the Africa Union and the European Union. And in this phase, 50 young experts were organized in 7 clusters of the initial priority areas identified by the young people that participated in the Youth Blogging Initiative. And these thematics include peace and security, governance and political inclusion, education and skills development, environment preservation, but also culture, art, and sport, with as cross-cutting issues, gender equality, and digitalization. So the Hub brings young experts together to provide an active, sustained role in the Africa-Europe cooperation. In the pilot project we are implementing, the hub moved youth engagement from consultations and declarations only to concrete action and youth-led project, addressing major challenges and showing that cooperation can happen differently with fun, but at the same time meet concrete results. The hub in itself is a laboratory where youth are testing new approaches, showing that cooperation, as I said, can happen differently with fun, with youth at the core as core drivers, and meet concrete results. Co-creation is at the heart of the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub's activities. When many tend on both continents to divide African and European youth, we at the hub, we turn young people to co-create solutions to challenges of youth engagement on both continents. Within the hub, we make youth co-create solutions to the challenges identified by the youth from the Youth Blogging Initiative. The clusters in the Youth Cooperation Hub have balance between African and European. And all of them, all of the participants have a range of experience and expertise, and they contribute to the work of the hub. And what is important to note at this point is that solutions from the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub are not solutions directed towards Africa alone, but solutions for Europe as well. Thank you, Rose. Maybe I would share a link with the participants where they can see more of what the hub is doing since 2018.
We've already put in the chat the link to the YouTube video, so you can see more about the Cooperation Hub for those who want to know. That's excellent. Thank you. Let me now turn to Maylen, and I think you may be speaking in Spanish. So for people who don't speak Spanish, make sure you've got interpretation. Maylen, tell us a little bit about the diversity.
Tamsin?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. I will do it in English. So
okay. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
So go ahead, Maylen. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and how, you can, have you got specific examples of how you can bring together young people in Africa and Europe together?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for this opportunity and sharing with all of you our experience. Our adventures began in 2018. A group of friends from Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo and Kenya to be specific, and the Basque Country thought that there could be new ways to create relations between Africa and Europe. What had been done until then was fine, but we wanted relationships to be created from young people and with the aim of creating opportunities and long-term connections. Our background is based on team entrepreneurship or teampreneurship. So Diversity for Equality is a cooperative that has emerged from Mondragon Team Academy of Mondragon University, that is the entrepreneurship unit of the university. So it is clear that our tool to create those opportunities and relationships is the social entrepreneurship in Thames. So in 2018, in an inter-cooperative way from the Mondragon group and with our African friends, we launched into the experience of designing a contest where 40 participants, 40 young people, 20 from Kenya and 20 from the Basque Country, created teams. And during 4 months and a designed methodology, they co-created 11 initiatives giving solution to a social challenge we were living both in Kenya and or the Basque Country. At the end of the process, and after celebrating 2 boot camps, one in Nairobi and the other one in the Basque, it was time for the final event. All the projects were presented to a jury waiting to see which would be the winner. And here comes the twist of the story, our greatest learnings. So when we launched this program, the Africa Basque Challenge, we designed it as a contest, something challenging and competitive. What we found is that, first of all, closing it to participants exclusively from Kenya and the Basque Country didn't enrich the program too much. So we ended up with participants from Somalia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Catalonia, even Costa Rica, in addition to Kenyans and Basques, of course. And the other hand, we realized that we had not created a contest, we created a community. And the relationships that were created between participants were what was really worth, and we knew they would be long lasting. So the question about how we bring African and European youth in an innovative way, the answer is being innovative ourselves. So the purpose of Diversity for Equality is to open entrepreneurship in an accessible and understandable way to all those who want to be change makers. And we firmly believe that anyone can be a change maker. In addition to that first edition of the Africa Basque Challenge between Kenya and the Basque Country, last year, in the middle of the pandemic situation, we held a second edition between Senegal and the Basque Country. This year, we had the opportunity to open a new line, the Africa Canarias Challenge between Senegal and the Canary Islands. They are now in the north of Senegal having a boot camp. And we have already launched the third edition of this ABC between Kenya, Senegal, and the Basque Country for the first time, joining 3 places in the same program. So the objective we have with these programs is transforming new young leaders and change makers and creating projects and future real companies that have positive impact in our communities and support reducing inequality barriers. As we say, we work for equality, empowering diversity, and this is our superpower.
Excellent, thank you. And it's very exciting to hear about an initiative that was created by young people, bringing them together, coming up with solutions together, then bringing other groups and it really moving forward. I think this is a great opportunity to see the potential of young people to innovate and operate differently. You didn't need structures or infrastructures or capacity building. You just got together to see what you could do. And it's this dynamic response that I think is so important. Before we move on to the next topic, and we've got quite a lot of comments coming into the chat about the issue of migration and the importance of education, skills and employment, of stopping young people leaving because it gives them economic opportunity. So our next speaker will cover that. But before we do that, we've had a question in the chat to find out about the Youth Cooperation Hub. And so I think perhaps you could, Audu, you can reply to that. Who chose them? How were they chosen? What was the role of really grass movements rather than youth parts of political organizations? How did you get a representation of the clusters? Audu, are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, of course. What we need to know as a specificity of the hub is that the hub in itself is at the same time a governance exercise and a cooperation exercise. As I said earlier, in 2018, young experts from Africa and Europe were selected based on their concrete program and sector expertise. So there was a call for proposals that was launched, call for applications with 15,000 applicants, and 50 young experts emerged to be selected and placed in the 7 clusters of the AU-EU Youth Cooperation Hub. So the 50 young experts were tasked with developing solutions and proposing pilot project ideas to demonstrate innovative ways of how to deal with issues affecting young people.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 2 people who've raised their hands, and I'm going to give them a chance to speak briefly before we pass the floor. Rose, you've had your hand up since the beginning, and Mary Kalale. Rose, what would you like to say? Please do it in 2 minutes.
Oui, D'accord, merci Madame Tamsien Rose et ainsi qu'à tout l'auditoire de me donner la parole. Je suis vraiment très heureuse de pouvoir participer à ce deuxième jour d'échange très constructif et enrichissant. En fait, ce que je voulais juste dire, c'est qu'en fait, encourager déjà ce qui est fait au sein de l'Union européenne et les différents États, mais juste insister ici, comme je le signalais déjà dans le chat, de travailler vraiment à la communication, l'accès à l'information et à la représentativité des différentes couches sociales de jeunes. Moi, je le dis parce que je travaille avec une couche de jeunes, je travaille avec des jeunes filles vulnérables, des jeunes adolescentes mères victimes de grossesses précoces, que ce soit en France, en Côte d'Ivoire, au Cameroun. Également, je travaille avec un mouvement, une association de jeunes artisans, justement dans le secteur de l'informel, où nous les accompagnons à pouvoir rentrer dans le secteur formel. Et comme je disais, il y a toujours ce problème d'accès à l'information qui se pose parce que, par exemple, au Cameroun, moi, j'ai pu le constater, il y a des actions qui sont mises. Je ne dirais pas que le gouvernement ne fait rien. Ils font énormément de choses. Récemment, il y a un appel à candidature qui a été lancé dans un ministère. Et là, on avait besoin de, je ne sais pas où c'était 100 candidats. On n'a que eu 40 candidats. Pourquoi? Parce que la jeunesse n'était pas informée. Donc, ils n'ont même pas pu remplir le quota des 100 dossiers qui étaient demandés. Mais pourquoi? Parce que les jeunes n'ont pas accès à l'information. Donc, il faut vraiment travailler à ce que tout ce qu'on veut bien mettre en place puisse toucher les différentes couches sociales de la jeunesse. Voilà, moi, c'est juste ça. Parce que, bon, dans l'accompagnement que nous faisons avec ce réseau d'artisans, ils ont bien la volonté de sortir. L'État met en œuvre des choses. Mais s'ils n'ont pas accès à l'information, ils ne peuvent rien, en fait. Il ne peut pas avoir de changement sans que les gens aient accès à la bonne information et en temps réel. Voilà, il n'y a rien qui peut se faire dans ce cas. Donc, moi, ici, vraiment, c'est qu'on travaille après cela à réfléchir à comment encourager et inciter des jeunes à pouvoir, je sais pas, les réseautages et voilà, communiquer pour que tout le monde puisse être au même niveau d'info et en temps réel. Quoi. Parce qu'il y a des bonnes initiatives également qu'on peut en tirer pour ces différentes couches de la société.
Thanks, Rose.
Voilà.
You made a very good point. That was about the importance of making sure that the information gets out to everyone. And I think somebody said that as well yesterday, that you have to outreach to young people in many different places because they don't all have access to smartphones or the internet. And they have the ideas that if you want to have the richness of their brains, you have to find ways of giving them access and equality of information. So thank you for that. Merche Kalele, you'd asked for the floor. Would you like to unmute yourself, put your camera on and say what you want to say? I can't see you. Merche Kalele, you put something in the chat and you put your hand up.
I think he's gone.
Okay, no problem. Then Kadim has just put in the chat that why don't we create a WhatsApp group to connect everyone who is in this webinar? So if you would like to be part of a WhatsApp group, I suggest you put your contact details in the chat and we'll see if we can create a group because there's an interest here in trying to move this forward. There's a passion and an energy and a dynamism, and it would be lovely to see that continue. And I can see that the CMR team would be happy to make that happen. Redouane.
Yes, something if I may. So I will leave my email contact in the chat, and whoever is interested in forming a group, so they can contact me through my email. I'll send you an email, and we will see how we can make that initiative become reality.
Thank you. Let me now pass to our next speaker, and that's Maria Grazia Montella, the Project Officer for Integration and Migration from Inclusities. And she's again going to give us examples of how we can unlock the potential of young people to respond to some of the big challenges and opportunities of migration. And this is a very hot topic. Every day in the European media, we have stories of young people getting on boats, trying to get into trucks, coming to Europe. And within Africa, there's huge numbers of young people moving. So this is a really big challenge for us to explore. So Maria, can I invite you to please unmute yourself and share what you would like?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Thompson. So I'm very delightful to be here today. I will just start. I a bit modified my presentation just to enhance a bit the conversation. So I really would like to start with a video because my presentation will be on climate change and migration. So on the link between climate change and migration. So I will just share briefly a video with you that is quite it's quite impactful. Okay. Okay, so it was just a very quick one. So if you want to follow, the investigation is there, but it gives me the opportunity to, it gives me the opportunity to introduce the migration in the context of climate change. So we can't, this video is talking about an evidence from the ground, but migration can be an option. So it can be an option of these kind of things. In the context of climate change, of course, migration is a phenomenon that that has multiple drivers that shape the decision to migrate. But it's really clear that young people and children are heavily concerned by these kind of migration dynamics. So the point here is that this link it's really underexplored, and that's why the support also of local regional governments is crucial in gathering data from the ground. But I just want to start by clarify how the climate change can actually impact the decision to migrate. So there are many signals of climate change. We saw, for example, the flood or the drought, but the very first one we are experiencing it nowadays is the rising of temperature, for example. So in the countries in which this rising is quicker, these countries are mostly located in Africa. So what is exactly the link between this and the economic sphere? A rise in the temperature impacts on the short and on the medium term the economy by reducing agricultural output, for example, suppressing the productivity of workers that are exposed to heat, slows investment. So just to give you an example, the effect of 1 Celsius degree increase in temperature means a drop in the growth of a country of 1.2%. And this is from a statistics from the International Monetary Fund from 2017, so more than 5 years ago. So just can imagine now. So predict for your challenges on the impact of climate change on youth needs more collaboration, definitely, between Europe countries and Africa, and also between local and regional authorities within the two continents, because at the end of the game, everything is played now in medium cities. So bilateral programs that engage, for example, youth in innovative green economic activities, in particular entrepreneurship. We saw also in the chat, a lot of you were pledging for more training programs on entrepreneurship. This can be actually an alternative that can offer an alternative employment opportunities, and is one of the possible things to do. But on the other hand, migration to new places can be an adaptation strategy, so can be a choice, only if there are the right policies facilitating these movements. And I'm thinking also in particular to women, to girls who migrate. So if we allow those people, those more vulnerable people also to migrate in the context of specific agenda, then it will be effectively, it could have effectively a positive impact also on the local ground, on the homeland, let's say. So this kind of migration can reduce the risk to rely on dying resources, for instance, and can also enable communities to diversify resources through a more productive use of remittances. For example, to create new green business in the country of and the homeland. It's always better to remind that children and young people are really the least responsible for climate change, but they are amongst the most vulnerable to its effects. So you, as today leaders, you should design policies aimed at minimizing the impact of climate change on future generations, and also propose aspirational alternatives. So it's a news from a couple of weeks ago. In Africa, they had this declaration of Lomé. So also UCLG Africa, they have a task force on climate. So there are a lot of initiatives, the Covenant of Mayors of Sub-Saharan Africa as well. So they are working on this, and they are constantly trying to boost new ways and new activities bilaterally or internationally to try to address this topic, because the two topics, climate change and migration, they are really, really, really very, very linked to one another, and they will be more linked in the next 5 years from now. So I just would like to conclude this very brief intervention with some rough ideas that could be implemented also on the local level. For example, highlight the link between climate change and migration within the social media to raise awareness on the local level, and to have the opportunity to channel up this issue on a national level, maybe engaging the diaspora movements. Or, for example, promote local studies and surveys about youth migration related to climate change and environmental degradation. This could be something that you can put in place with university. On a more political level, for example, frame migration and climate change within your local development agenda. Or at the very end, for example, apply and participate in international projects that, through twinning with EU cities, for example, can contribute to capacity building of young people regarding environmental issues and climate change. So I do hope that this very, very brief intervention can give you also a bit of food for thoughts and can enhance a bit the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Grazia. You've again highlighted for us both the fact that climate change is an environmental fact of change on the ground, but the impact on families, the income, their income that they can earn, and then the impact that might have on young girls, their education and their life chances. So you've made the link for us again about the drivers for migration, why young people might leave their homes, their villages, and leave the continent. Let me now pass the floor to Ibtichem Atitala. You're the Deputy Mayor of Sfax in Tunisia. And I'd like you perhaps to respond, first of all, to what you heard from Maria Grazia about migration, because Tunisia is a country through which people pass on their way. So you're experiencing migration, just a loss of young people who are leaving Tunisia, but also as a country of pass-through. As a local elected official, how do you try and address such a huge problem as that?
Bonjour. Bon, je remercie tout d'abord les organisateurs et les modérateurs de cette rencontre. Je remercie également Monsieur Lionel Zomba qui m'a invité à ce webinaire et qui m'a fait le plaisir de participer. Je salue tous les amis et les collègues qui ont participé, qui ont intervenu hier et aujourd'hui avec leurs interventions qui m'ont été très utiles. Bon, je me présente tout d'abord, je suis Eftisem Atitala, donc de la ville de Sfax de la Tunisie. Je travaille comme ingénieure à la Société tunisienne d'électricité et des gaz. Je suis adjointe au maire de Sfax et présidente de la commission volontariat. Et je suis élue au conseil municipal depuis 3 ans et je représente l'Afrique du Nord dans le réseau des jeunes élus locaux africains. En fait, ma présence dans le conseil municipal de Sfax m'a permis d'établir plusieurs relations avec des acteurs nationaux et internationaux, que ce soit à travers la gestion de la coopération décentralisée de la commune ou à travers des rencontres organisées par des organismes actifs dans le domaine des gouvernements locaux, régionaux et dans le domaine de la jeunesse. Concernant votre question sur les migrants, à Sfax, on a bien travaillé sur cette thématique. C'était essentiellement à travers la commission de la coopération décentralisée qui ont bien travaillé sur cela, étant donné qu'on peut considérer que les migrants sont des groupes vulnérables. Donc, ce sont des groupes vulnérables. Si je peux mettre le lien entre le travail sur cette thématique et la présence des jeunes élus, la présence des jeunes élus, si je mets le lien entre le travail sur ces thématiques et les jeunes élus d'Afrique et d'Europe, nous pouvons tirer parti de notre connectivité mondiale pour faire ensemble face aux défis majeurs et communs de nos villes, tels que bien évidemment les effets néfastes du changement climatique et les conséquences sévères de la pandémie de Covid-19. Donc, les deux thématiques, soit le changement climatique qui affecte les migrants et même aussi les citoyens des villes. Donc, moi, je pense qu'avec la présence de moyens de communication virtuels avancés et des réseaux sociaux, je pense que la mise en place d'un réseau ou d'un groupe virtuel de jeunes élus ou même à travers la création d'une application téléchargeable à partir du Google Play ou du Play Store ou même d'un site internet, ça permet aux jeunes élus d'articuler immédiatement des relations permanentes et de favoriser un dialogue sur toutes nos préoccupations. Donc, on pourra échanger aussi nos expériences, on pourra programmer des formations sur des thématiques aussi bien politiques que techniques. L'échange à travers un groupe virtuel de jeunes élus des 2 continents nous permet aussi de lancer des discussions sur plusieurs thématiques, de gérer ensemble les crises avec des solutions pratiques communes, surtout après ce qu'on a déjà vécu et nous vivons encore en raison de la pandémie du Covid-19. Bon, je pense qu'il est aussi efficace d'élargir nos discussions à la participation d'autres acteurs, comme les ONG, les associations et les universités, en étant ouvert sur la société civile, bien sûr. Donc, on peut garantir le principe de la démocratie participative, que tout le monde travaille sur cet objectif. Et on apporte aussi plus de légitimité aux solutions proposées à nos problèmes communs. Donc, si je peux me permettre de parler un peu des leçons tirées de la pandémie, comme toutes les villes du monde. En effet, depuis la crise du Covid, c'est-à-dire le début de l'année 2020, Nous avons tous appris de nouvelles choses. Donc, tant que les villes sont en première ligne pour lutter contre cette épidémie, d'où l'apparition de nouveaux mécanismes de travail et de méthodes de communication. Donc, nous sommes tous convaincus de la nécessité de réhabiliter nos communes et de renouveler les manières de faire face aux crises. Donc, il faut rappeler que cette crise a touché toutes les catégories de personnes et surtout les plus vulnérables et les plus démunis, comme vous l'avez dit, les migrants, donc en particulier les migrants. Donc, la crise sanitaire du Covid-19, elle vient nous rappeler encore une fois de l'importance de concevoir des villes inclusives, durables et résilientes. Une ville inclusive et solidaire est une garantie pour la protection des personnes vulnérables, comme je l'ai déjà dit, comme les immigrés, aussi les réfugiés, les chômeurs et les pauvres. Une ville résiliente qui, malgré les recettes fiscales en baisse durant la pandémie, doit pouvoir sauver son financement des programmes de développement urbain. Une deuxième leçon tirée est l'importance de la participation de la société civile dans une telle démarche de lutte contre la pandémie. Donc, cette participation englobe le renforcement de l'offre sanitaire, le soutien de l'économie et l'aide directe aux plus démunis, afin d'atténuer les effets dévastateurs de cette crise et de traiter les problèmes urgents et d'assurer la bonne gestion aussi des intérêts quotidiens des citoyens. Donc, par ailleurs, un plan de communication des villes qui est clair et réussi permet aussi une protection plus efficace des citoyens, y compris bien sûr toute personne comme les migrants. Une bonne communication est essentielle face à la crise épidémique du Covid, ainsi que la crise du changement climatique qui existe depuis des années et qui persiste et s'aggrave d'une année à l'autre. Donc, concernant maintenant les opportunités, je pense que la plus proche et importante opportunité en termes de coopération et de solidarité entre les deux continents de l'Afrique et l'Europe existe à travers le sommet Africité que se tiendra bientôt à Kijimi en avril 2022. Donc, je pense qu'on doit travailler pour ce sommet-là. Je pense que ce rassemblement démocratique de plusieurs acteurs et de différents pays du monde, y compris les deux continents de l'Afrique et de l'Europe, il nous permettra, nous, les jeunes élus, les jeunes leaders, d'amplifier notre voix et de renforcer notre présence et impact. Par ailleurs, je pense aussi qu'un échange de visites futures sur terrain, un accompagnement des jeunes qui viendront dans les pays des deux continents à travers, par exemple, les jumelages qui existent déjà. Bon, je peux citer l'exemple, à nous, par exemple, à Sfax, on a les jumelages Grenoble-Sfax, Dakar-Sfax, Marbourg-Sfax, ou même à travers de nouveaux partenariats spécifiques à la jeunesse. On peut en fait créer de nouvelles partenariats spécifiques à la jeunesse. Et autre chose, je pense qu'une feuille de route biennale ou quinquennale ou un plan d'action périodique est une chose primordiale pour réussir le réseau et à mon avis pour définir nos priorités et nos domaines stratégiques pour des actions communes. On peut travailler sur plusieurs thématiques telles que la culture, l'entrepreneuriat, le leadership, la question des migrants. Et je propose qu'un groupe de travail de jeunes élus entame cette réflexion. Bon, merci d'avoir écouté et merci de nouveau.
Thank you, Ibtichem, for your thoughts and your ideas, your suggestions about the themes that could be worked on together. I notice we've got several questions in the chat as well, which are really interesting. People, so Kadim is asking, what does an inclusive city mean to you? So from your perspective, from your city, what is it? How do you describe it? How do you define it? How do you measure it? And as an elected official, how do you hold yourself accountable for your city being inclusive? Thank you, Kadim. It's been a really interesting question to ask and to share. We've had some questions as well from Grazia, who's asking about if an international recognition of a climate refugee would help. Would it give legal strength to efforts to tackle climate change? So she's interested in your opinion on that. So we have lots of areas where we would like to hear from you, like your suggestions. And I can see that we have Mayor Kalale back. You had asked for the floor a little bit earlier and we didn't have a chance to let you unmute and share. Mayor, are you there? I can see his chair. Hi, Mayor. Bonjour. Allez-y.
Oui. Merci, merci. Je suis d'autant heureux de participer à cette plateforme de discussion. Je suis Tijani Bani Chabi, maire de la commune de Kalale. Kalale, c'est dans le département du Borgou. Ma commune, je suis élu maire il y a de cela 1 an. J'espère que beaucoup de personnes ont, à travers les réseaux sociaux, constaté le plus jeune maire qui a été élu dans le Bénin. Et donc, aujourd'hui, je suis au cœur de tout ce qui se passe au niveau local. Ma commune, c'est une commune qui a environ plus de 200 000 habitants. Actuellement, je constate le rôle que la jeunesse doit jouer dans le contexte du développement. C'est vrai qu'à un certain moment, nous avons milité dans des associations, mais nous n'étions pas au fond. Nous ne comprenons pas comment est-ce que ça se passe, mais quand on est vraiment au feu de l'action, nous voyons, nous sommes en contact avec la réalité. Je pense que c'est une occasion pour nous de nous exprimer et je tiens vraiment à remercier tous ceux qui ont mis en place cette organisation-là pour que la jeunesse du monde entier puisse échanger, surtout la jeunesse africaine et la jeunesse de l'Union européenne. Donc, je voudrais dire toute ma fierté de pouvoir participer à ces échanges-là. En premier, je voudrais dire que si aujourd'hui la crise actuelle nous a appris quelque chose, c'est que la coopération entre l'Afrique et l'Europe est plus que jamais importante. Vous constatez que les États et les acteurs locaux doivent s'appuyer sur leurs forces, leurs propres forces. Chacun doit faire l'état des lieux pour comprendre quelle est sa force, tirer des enseignements de leur propre expérience et s'engager de manière significative avec les sociétés civiles, en particulier les organisations liées à la jeunesse. Puisque nous constatons aujourd'hui, quand je prends ma commune qui est une commune rurale, en majorité actuellement, c'est la jeunesse. Plus de 80%, c'est la jeunesse. La jeunesse qui est confrontée à tous les maux. Il y a la crise de changement climatique qui est là, il y a le chômage, il y a le problème de l'éducation. Tous ces problèmes-là, aujourd'hui, je pense que nous, en tant que jeunes, on doit aller dans la coopération. En tant que jeunes élus, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons besoin de cette coopération-là pour pouvoir vraiment montrer de quoi est-ce que la jeunesse est capable.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. And again, for reminding us the importance of looking at employment and talking to young people and giving them a chance to participate. I just want to let you know that we have 8 minutes left in our meeting. We have 2 people who've asked for the floor, and I still need to bring in Redouane and Lionel, who are 2 co-organizers. So if I could invite both Elom Aviti and Modou Ndoyo, you've both asked for the floor, and I'll do that. But if I could ask you to keep it to 2 minutes, that would be very helpful. So, Modou, would you like to go ahead, and then it will be Elom? Hello, Modou.
Voilà, bonjour. Allô?
Yes, I hear you. Bonjour.
Allô? Allô?
Go ahead, Modou.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour.
Modou, c'est bon, vous pouvez parler.
Bonjour, voilà, bonjour. Voilà, c'est un réel plaisir donc pour nous en tant que jeunes élus. Donc je vous présente, je suis le maire de la commune de Ndoye, dans le département de CEMR au Sénégal.
Sénégal.
Et nous avons été conviés par Madame Tess Faye Diouf, donc la mairesse de Ndiarel, pour dire que donc, cette plateforme donc, c'est très importante pour nous jeunes élus de pouvoir avoir donc, un cadre d'échange. Mais moi aussi, j'aurais suggéré que donc, comme le temps est un peu limité, c'est-à-dire de mettre en place un groupe WhatsApp qui nous permettra, donc, nous, jeunes élus, donc, de pouvoir continuer donc, les échanges, mais de pouvoir continuer donc, la réflexion. Parce que nous sommes des jeunes élus et nous avons donc des communes, de petites communes qui n'ont pas beaucoup de ressources. Et nous comptons donc beaucoup sur la coopération centralisée. Parce que nous avons quelque chose à offrir. Donc nous, nos communes au Sénégal, nous avons la terre, nous avons donc des ressources, mais nous n'avons pas beaucoup de moyens pour pouvoir les exploiter. Et nous aurions compté beaucoup sur la coopération centralisée pour attirer donc les investisseurs pour qu'ils puissent venir exploiter donc,
the quality of the sound is really
nous avons comme ressources qui
not good.
Des jeunes, mais beaucoup de financement pour pouvoir donc.
Thank you, and we take your suggestion that it's better for us to have an exchange via a special WhatsApp group to support young elected officials so that you can share ideas. Thank you for that. Elom, if I could even... Elom, go ahead.
Oui, bonjour chers tous, j'espère que vous me recevez très bien. Mon nom c'est Elom Aviti, je suis un élu communal. Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que le Togo a entamé la décentralisation depuis 2019. Donc nous sommes tous heureux au pays. Notre pays compte aujourd'hui 117 communes. Et moi, je suis adjoint au maire de la commune de Tarnier 1, perché sur une montagne au Togo dans les plateaux. Par rapport à toute la thématique qui est développée aujourd'hui, je suis très heureux de participer à cela parce que pour moi, personnellement, c'est la première fois que je participe à des rencontres de ce genre. C'est vraiment la première fois et c'est intéressant. J'ai pris le temps d'écouter tout le monde bien sûr les choses et sincèrement, j'ai beaucoup appris aujourd'hui. C'est bien. Maintenant, avoir une relation entre les jeunes africains et les jeunes d'Europe, vous voyez que nous, étant dans une commune rurale ici au Togo, c'est tout un défi pour nous. Okay, les procédures de jumelage, même, on ne les maîtrise pas. Il y a une sœur qui a déjà parlé de la mise à disposition d'informations. Il a parlé des formations par rapport aux jeunes. J'ai beaucoup écouté. Alors, moi, si je suis là exceptionnellement aujourd'hui, c'est pour dire que tous ces thèmes-là, je les ai écoutés, j'ai écouté les différents développements. Et nous, au Togo, étant une commune rurale, je ne veux pas faire le listing de tout ce qu'il y a comme défi à relever au sein de ma commune. Nous sommes une commune de 30 000 habitants. Voilà, les sites touristiques chez nous, il y en a tellement, mais nous n'avons pas la possibilité de les développer. Du coup, ce cadre d'échange, sincèrement, nous pensons, en tout cas au niveau de la commune de Dani 1 et en tant qu'élu local et agent maire de ma commune, que ça pourrait nous permettre de décrocher à partir d'ici justement des contacts, des mails, des échanges de mails qui pourront progressivement aboutir à des jumelages. Et partant de là, la commune de Dany 1 pourra s'ouvrir sur le monde, apprendre d'autres, échanger avec d'autres, se vendre et acheter d'autres également pour que la jeunesse des deux continents puisse vraiment travailler au développement de nos communes et surtout pour le bien-être de nos populations, ce qui est notre priorité. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, and good luck with the work in your commune. It's clearly some big challenges ahead. I'd like to now pass the floor to Redouane and Lionel to see where we are from the two organizing parties and what the plans could be to take this forward, because I'm getting a clear understanding that people find a value as young elected officials to have a chance to talk to each other, to exchange, to understand what solutions can be found. So I think there's a lot of work that could be done together, and it will be up to you both to take it forward. So Redouane, Lionel, I pass you the floor.
Lionel, you would like to go first, or? Okay, I'll speak on behalf of both of us. So well, first of all, so I would like to thank everybody who joined yesterday and today, and I would like to really insist that this initiative was basically implemented for you youth, but also like from Europe and Africa, but also like for our young local leaders. And the idea is really not to create another platform, if I would say. It's really about like complementing already all the brilliant initiative and existing platforms that are already available. I mean, we've just seen in the Basque Country, we've seen also like with Audu that there is also like already like a platform that exists. But the idea is really on what could we cooperate as a network between Europe and Africa. What could be, I know that we have like many challenges, and then sometimes like it's not easy because all of them matters, but the idea here is really also like to probably see what could be one or two priority topics. We see that migration was really one of the topics that was when mentioned in the chat, but also like through Grazia, we understood also like the new challenge that are coming for the next generation. And the idea is really to how can we reinforce and cooperate this cooperation between the two continents, between youth, between local leaders. So for me, it's really about like a win-win partnership indeed between like our two continents, but also between youth and local leaders. So here I would say my message for our local young local elected politicians is really about go and speak to your to the young people. It's really about like let's try to build a bridge between politics and between people from, I would say, like the ground, and then let's see also like how can we collaborate on the local level. It's really about coming together as a group, and then the idea here is really to understand what should be the priority topic, and then move on to why not having like some preparatory meetings coming like between like September and December with who are interested to collaborate and work on either migration or climate change, or it's up to you to really decide what should matter. I mean, it's not up to me, it's not up to Lionel. We're here to facilitate and to provide this platform for you to not only collaborate, but also like to express and make your voice not only like heard, but also be recognized on the local level. So I strongly encourage you to get in contact with me and get in contact with Lionel also to provide your ideas, to provide your inputs on what are like the main challenges that you would like to collaborate on. And I'm saying like in Europe and in Africa, and we will do our best like to really facilitate the implementation of either an initiative, or I've understood that you're big fans of WhatsApp groups. So this is also one of the possibility, but really the idea is like to work on key messages and key messages that young people and young local leaders will be at the center of the, I would say, like the writing process and the brainstorming process. So yeah, and I would really like I would like to thank you for joining, and then for coming, and then for brainstorming and sharing all your experiences, valuable experiences, and brilliant ideas. So I will stop here, Tamzin.
Thank you. Lionel, would you like to add anything?
Oui, merci de m'avoir donné la parole. En premier, d'abord, moi, je souhaiterais remercier les participants, les élus, et en plus de les remercier pour leur participation, féliciter tous les jeunes qui ont pu accéder au mandat local. Parce que nous savons que c'est une chose dure, d'abord, d'être un jeune, en plus d'être une femme, et ensuite d'accéder au mandat local. C'est une chose difficile, et je crois que c'est la première chose qu'on devrait faire lorsqu'on parvient à réunir pour un deuxième jour une soixantaine de jeunes sur des questions de niveau local, mais qui ont aussi des répercussions sur le niveau international. J'aimerais souligner en fait que CEGLU Afrique et le CCRE, en mettant en place cette initiative, avaient à l'idée l'envie de préparer la relève, c'est-à-dire une nouvelle génération d'élus qui soient à la fois conscients des enjeux internationaux, mais aussi qui soient prêts à agir sur le terrain. Parce qu'il faut savoir que le niveau local, c'est le niveau de la réactivité. C'est le premier niveau où on apporte des solutions concrètes. Et on a vu à travers les différentes thématiques qui ont été citées, l'éducation, la migration, le climat, c'est des domaines sur lesquels les jeunes qui sont ici présents, les jeunes élus qui sont ici présents, ont déjà un pied ou sont déjà affiliés à ces genres d'idées, à la fois sur le plan personnel, mais aussi sur le plan politique. Donc, moi, je voudrais encourager les jeunes élus, les jeunes experts qui sont présents à savoir que cette initiative que nous faisons, aujourd'hui, c'est un premier pas, mais d'autres initiatives arrivent où on sera amené à discuter, à échanger. Mais le petit conseil que je me permets de donner, c'est d'abord de considérer l'initiative de la création de la page WhatsApp comme un premier pas. Mais on utilise WhatsApp pour des réactions rapides, si on souhaite convoquer une réunion, etc. Je souhaiterais que ça serve d'abord à ça en premier, et ensuite à conclure, disons, à conclure des rendez-vous précis où on pourra, comme c'est le cas aujourd'hui, discuter, choisir, prioriser et décider. Ensuite, la question qui nous a été posée, c'est quelles seraient les prochaines étapes, les endroits où les jeunes élus pourraient porter la voix des jeunes. Parce qu'il faut savoir que nous souhaitons utiliser toutes les ressources que permettent nos organisations, mais aussi la démocratie locale, pour faire en sorte que la voix des jeunes aille plus loin et permette d'emmener des revendications qui sont au niveau local. La première, c'est l'accès au travail, l'accès à la vie décente. C'est toutes ces questions-là qui sont traitées au niveau local et que nous devrons penser à une stratégie afin que chaque ville puisse répondre aux priorités que les maires auront établies. C'est pour ça que le réseau que nous avons créé au niveau de CEGLU Afrique à travers le Yellow, qui est le réseau des jeunes élus d'Afrique, c'est premièrement ramener toutes les revendications du niveau local vers les instances de décision pour que nous puissions apporter des solutions rapides, réagir de manière effective et surtout, par exemple, je voudrais dire infiltrer les sphères où d'habitude les jeunes n'ont pas accès. Nous avons créé le sommet Africité justement pour pouvoir discuter de toutes les questions transversales. Ensuite, en ce qui concerne les espaces dédiés aux autorités locales, il y a le congrès de CGLU, qui est un espace aussi important de discussion. Le CCRE également organise quasiment chaque année des rencontres avec des élus. C'est des espaces où nous pourrons discuter, soit en fonction des thématiques précises, comme on l'a fait au GFMD, qui est le Forum mondial pour la migration. On pourrait donc porter la voix des jeunes sur ces différents forums. Donc, j'ai parlé du Forum mondial de la migration, mais il y a aussi le Forum mondial sur l'économie sociale. Et on a parlé beaucoup du climat. Il y a la COP. La prochaine COP je crois que ce sera au Chili, et on pourra encourager nos secrétaires généraux, c'est-à-dire M. Vallier et M. Mbassé, pour qu'ils puissent introduire la question, en tout cas introduire le réseau des jeunes élus, pour que nos élus ici, qui sont spécialisés dans plusieurs domaines, pour pouvoir défendre la question du climat. Donc, je vais finir sur l'invitation qui a été faite au début par Madame Moustache-Belle, qui concerne le sommet Africité. Vous êtes tous invités à participer au sommet Africité. Le sommet Africité, comme l'a dit la mairesse Atitala Ibtissem, c'est le plus grand rendez-vous démocratique en Afrique au niveau des collectivités territoriales. Nous vous invitons pour discuter de plusieurs questions. Développement local, finances locales, où on en est avec la migration, parce que c'est une question aussi très importante pour les jeunes. Donc, moi, je vous invite déjà à déposer vos adresses pour la prochaine étape. Nous avons déjà défini des priorités et après, on devra aussi choisir les champions, que ce soit en Europe ou en Afrique, ceux qui défendront les différentes thématiques que nous avons identifiées. Donc, je vous remercie, Madame Rose, pour la modération de cette session. Vous avez été brillante et je remercie aussi les interprètes. Je crois que c'est la seule occasion que j'aurai pour placer des remerciements. Bon après-midi à vous.
Thank you to Lionel and to all participants and of course our translators who helped us to have this conversation. There will be an article on the CMR and the Platforma website about this meeting and the video if you want to share it and watch it again. Please follow Platforma and CMR on social media. And I would like to say thank you very much for participating this afternoon and being part of this first conversation. I am inspired by the energy and the passion of young elected officials. And I think this is if we need new thinking to solve some of the big challenges ahead, it's a fantastic sign to see so many young officials who've come forward and who stand ready to bring this new thinking. So thank you all and see you at the next event. Goodbye.